welcome back to WJ Live. I'm George Upper, Editor-in-Chief of the Western Journal. I'm joined today by Deputy Managing Editor Josh Manning on my left, and making her first appearance on WJ Live, editorial intern Sarah Hone.
Hey-o!
Right. Happy to have you here, Sarah.
Thank you.
We have got a bunch of stuff to talk to you about, but the first thing we want to jump into right away is an op-ed that we ran on the Western Journal yesterday exclusively. You can't find this anywhere else, or if you can find it anywhere else, it's because they stole it.
Let us know. We'll send Sarah to get them.
And it ran so that you see it on the screen now. It had sort of a subtitle, which was "The Constitutional Duty of State Legislatures in a Contested Presidential Election." We don't normally run subtitles, but we don't normally run op-eds like this either. I got this yesterday afternoon. I worked on it for a couple of hours at home, and eventually decided essentially we were going to run it as written. I didn't bring it into conformity with AP style, with our house style. I did a little bit of editing to make it fit on the page right, but I felt that this memo, is how it was described to me when it was sent to me, was so important that it was really important to let the writers, William Olson and Patrick McSweeney, have their voice, have their say. Let this be very clear that it comes from them. So Olson and McSweeney are a couple of constitutional attorneys. William Olson had 3 different roles in the Reagan administration. Patrick McSweeney worked in the Department of Justice for a number of years. They both are constitutional attorneys now, working at 2 different firms that specialize in constitutional law, among other things. So these are a couple of guys who really know what they're talking about. And this op-ed has been on fire all day on the site. We have had just an enormous response to it. It's quite long, and so I want to break it down first, and then I want to offer an update of some information that we got today about the op-ed that wasn't available when we first published it. So just bringing it down as quickly as I can. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can summarize. I'm going to summarize this. Bear with me. So during the 2020 presidential election, according to Olson and McSweeney, many of the so-called swing states, including Arizona, which they make sort of a special case about in this memo, saw unprecedented and unlawful, their word, erosions of procedural safeguards, and listen to this, erosions of procedural safeguards as well as administrative irregularities on Election Day. Note that they don't even talk about fraud here. What they say is that states did a really bad job. In unprecedented times, we have Corona and everything else going on, prevalence of mail-in ballots, all of this kind of stuff. And what they're harping on here is not the possibility of fraud, although they do talk about that. But they really set the stage initially by talking about the failure of the states to adapt to this environment, and therefore the electoral process was not as safe and secure as it should be. Mm-hmm. And they say people deserve an honest accounting of who won. I don't think anybody, left or right, can agree with that. Largely, they wrote this in response to a piece written by Andrew McCarthy in National Review. And McCarthy, who I think he's a good writer, made a mistake when he wrote in National Review. What he did was he basically said, no, state legislatures cannot overturn the popular vote.
Which is categorically untrue. It's effectively untrue.
It's untrue, and B, it's not what the Trump administration is trying to do. Mm-hmm. Nobody's trying to...
But when does that stop National Review?
Well, that's right. Nobody's trying to overturn the actual vote. What the Trump administration is saying is, we don't think this is the actual vote. Yep. We think there's something else going on. Mm-hmm. So they use Arizona as sort of a test case, although what they talk about exists everywhere, certainly in swing states. Biden, if you look at the current vote tallies in Arizona, is winning by 10,457 votes. That is 0.31% of all the votes counted. That's a rounding error. Yep. It is very easy with zero evidence very easy to see how it's possible that mistakes could be made on 11,000 votes out of the 3 million or so that were cast.
Let alone lack of residency requirements, illegals voting, and these things.
Exactly. But
one of these
take all
things,
that out of it.
Yeah,
and you still have a possibility of 11,000 mistakes being made. Honest mistakes. That's a tiny number.
Yeah.
Olson and McSweeney argue, however, that it's not just about mistakes, it's not just about procedural errors, but that they're actually arguing that the Trump legal team has laid out a prima facie case of systemic election fraud. Now, that's Latin. It's a court term, a legal term, and it just means first face. I'm sure you knew that, Josh.
Actually, I'm not sure if you know this. Most all phrases in Latin actually translate to exactly the same thing. I don't know if you know this or not.
Oh, really? No, I wasn't aware of that. So they all turn
virtually every Latin phrase translates into "I know Latin and you don't."
You don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's actually in our house style guide somewhere. Yeah. So prima facie just means it literally means first face. It means you have to lay out a case. When you first get to court, you have to lay out a case to let the judge even to make a decision. Like, do we even need to be here talking about this? Right? Is there even enough worth talking about here? And if not, your case gets thrown out. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and that's not a legal definition of prima facie. Okay, that's basically how it works.
It's pretty spot on.
Yeah, thanks. Sarah is a lawyer, so
I'm working on it. Okay. I'm getting there.
So now these two lawyers, Olson and McSweeney, are arguing that prima facie case has been made, that the Trump legal team has presented enough information to say, yeah, we should go on. We should continue looking at this. More than that, they note that a significant number of voters do not trust the system. I've seen numbers like 70% of Republicans believe systemic voter fraud occurred. They even cite a case of a study where 30% of Democrats believe that significant voter fraud occurred. So point being that in addition to this instance of potential fraud, there's also this issue of voter confidence that needs to be addressed by state legislators. So, as we've mentioned many times on this show in the past couple of weeks, state legislators choose the electors that get sent to the Electoral College to vote for the president. This process was chosen specifically by the founders to combat a couple of things. One, corruption. 2, foreign interference.
Which we've heard about.
These are two things that the Democrats have been complaining about loudly since 2016, right? So you'd think if anybody has an interest in supporting the constitutional process, it would be the Democrats, right?
Yeah.
And it makes sense. When the Constitution was written in the late 1700s, think about all the TV shows you've ever seen about kings and queens in Europe and how this king sends his daughter to marry this prince of this country so they can form an alliance. And so the idea of foreign influence and influence peddling between nations, today we may think of that as, does that even really happen? In the 18th century, it was very common that that kind of thing happened.
And the founders had watched those TV shows and knew
they watched a lot of Hulu. I think
a lot of Hulu.
Yeah, and so they were very, very concerned about that happening, or very concerned about preventing that from happening. And that
was the realpolitik of Europe, where they came from. That was not the exception; it was the rule.
Exactly, and they didn't want that to be the rule in the United States, and so the Electoral College was founded. So I'm going to read a couple of short paragraphs here from this, and then I've got a couple of questions for you guys. Based on these arguments, here's the conclusion that Olson and McSweeney come to. Quote, the question for each Arizona state legislator should be whether the vote counting system that is in place has generated an accurate re-election of the lawful voters of Arizona, or whether the system either is flawed or was hijacked to reach a predetermined result. if it is believed that there was systemic election fraud in Arizona, then allowing the state certification process to go forward unchecked would make the legislature complicit in the perpetration of a fraud upon the United States and its people. So those are pretty strong words of warning to state legislators in Arizona. Again, they used Arizona as sort of a test case, but their argument applies to any swing state you want to name. So here's what they suggest. However, there is no reason why a state legislature could not send its own certificate of ascertainment, which in this scenario could, 1, give all of the state's electors to Trump, 2, could split them between Trump and Biden, or 3, refuse to send any electors at all. So here, my question for you two is this. What would have to happen for state legislatures, Arizona or anywhere else, Pennsylvania, Georgia? They also include actually in this memo, they had an appendix to it. And the appendix was an article that laid out a pretty decent case for voter fraud, systemic voter fraud by computer in both Georgia and Pennsylvania. So this is not just an Arizona thing. But what would have to happen for state legislatures to essentially nullify their state's election results, as recorded, and select a different slate of electors? What would it take for legislators to take that seriously?
Well, I think
that's a big step.
Yes, and I think given the environment we're in right now, I think the Kraken being released would be helpful. And I only say that half jokingly. Whatever you want to believe about the Trump legal team, they have set an exceptionally high bar for themselves. The media was already going to set a high bar and say, man, you're really going to have to prove some voter fraud. But now with all of the talk of Krakens and, I mean, Rudy Giuliani, I've got 200 affidavits and I can't show them to you and this and that and the other. They are really going to have to show some significant voter fraud. Otherwise, it's going to look like they were. They're making a mountain out of a molehill. So I think that is one thing, and I think that's a problem from the PR aspect of the Trump legal team. The other one may be we're going to take Arizona as the test case for Arizona citizens to actually get on the phone and storm Phoenix and say, look, we think there was fraud involved in this. There's, whatever percentage of us are Republicans, 70% of those people think this was not fair, that it was rigged in some way, shape, or form. And we want you to act. You have a fiduciary responsibility to act on our behalf and to preserve our interests, and we want you to act in that capacity. It's an interesting thing. You were talking about, the survey, the poll you saw that said 70% of Republicans. If
I saw another one that said 96% of Republicans didn't trust.
Well, that's remarkable.
Results, yeah.
So say it's 70, and say we'll round up. Say Trump got to 80 million. That's 56 million Americans. That is a straight up a sixth of the country, if my math is right.
It's a problem.
That's an enormous problem. And I read the op-ed. I thought they were I think they hit extremely hard on the idea that, look, it is the state legislature's responsibility. They just said it over and over and over again. The line that actually stuck out to me was where they said, it's paraphrasing, but if there were potential issues and the election was not legitimate, then state legislatures that certify that vote are complicit with the fraud.
Right.
And that is something that they need to think long and hard about, I think. So I'm, either a Kraken shows up or the public arrives en masse.
Sarah, you agree with that?
I completely agree. And in this
wise intern, wise.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I learned everything from you. So I think in this case, it's just really power to the people. They have to, first of all, there has to be evidence of voter fraud, which we already have a lot of that. So And then secondly, it's up to the legislatures and the people to demand a recount or to investigate further. So
Yeah. So if you live in a swing state, what you might think about doing is reading this op-ed. Kobe, can we get get that screenshot that I sent you up again when you have a second, please? Take a look at that, at this story. Read this op-ed. Call your state legislators if you believe this to be accurate, if you believe it represents something you're interested in, and just tell them to read it. Just tell them that you want them to read it and then do their duty. That is an option. I promised on Twitter a little while ago, an hour or two ago, an update to this story that I want to give you guys. I talked today with a individual who I've known for a number of years who is very tied into politics, both at the Arizona state level and at the national level. And this op-ed is being taken very seriously by some state legislators who are talking about it and talking about what precisely to do about it. What I will I can't go into a great deal of detail yet. I don't have confirmation on some of the stuff, and I don't want to speculate. But what I will tell you is that this individual that I spoke with said that their phone was melting down from the calls that they were getting from politicians about this op-ed, about this topic. So I think there is an opportunity for people who want to see this process go forward to make a difference. And that's a great point. Call your legislators and, read the thing first. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Then call your legislators and make sure they read it and request a response from them about it. It is their responsibility. Related question, sort of, why do so many election officials and Democrats seem to be insistent that any further investigation into this voter fraud is unnecessary? Sarah, why do you think that is?
It's so clear to me. They're hiding something. I mean, whether all of them know it or not, they're clearly hiding something. I mean, it's been well documented that there are many cases of voter fraud. And I think they know that the system is flawed in their favor. It comes down to that. I think they're being extremely hypocritical because with the 2016 election, what did we hear about?
Right.
Russia.
Foreign influence.
Yeah,
right.
Russia interfering. And so I just think it's extremely hypocritical. If there's nothing to hide, then why are they being so...
That's been my question from the beginning. If everything's on the up and up, what's the problem with looking at it?
Mm-hmm.
So you and I talked about this a while back when all of the people began to take COVID into account with the election and started talking about mail-in ballots and those things.
Right.
And I suggested to you then that the entire point of that was less to rig the election and more to create a sense of uncertainty. And that is what has happened. We have an enormous sense of uncertainty now. If 56 million American voters think that the thing's rigged, you got a lot of uncertainty all of a sudden.
That's a problem, yeah.
It's also, but it provides a really convenient opportunity for the Democrats to look like they're taking the moral high ground and to say, no, trust that the Republic is strong. We know what we're doing. Everything's fine. We look at this and we picture Leslie Nielsen in Naked Gun with fireworks factory going off behind us. Move along, nothing to see here.
Right.
But I do think there's something to the ability to kind of with a calm voice sit there and say, no, everything's all right. Mm-hmm. Everything's proceeding as planned.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got, again, not to hit them too hard, but you've got Sydney out there saying she's going to release a Kraken and bringing Hugo Chavez's legacy into this and all of these things. So I think it's maybe a preferable position to wage war from, the one that they've arranged for themselves. Maybe. For
the record, I spend probably 40% of my time thinking about Leslie Nielsen in from that fireworks factory. So that's not really a new thing for me.
Move along. Move along.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Speaking of which, there is a guy in New Jersey who I think was hoping people would take that attitude towards his dinner out.
Old Phil Murphy. Phil Murphy. He's governor of New Jersey. he signed. New Jersey's a liberal state on the left.
Yes.
They are not as crazy as far as lockdowns go as California goes. We're going to look at that here in a minute, but they're not as crazy as the Californians are, and he's not as crazy as Newsom. But he has.
To be fair, it's hard to be.
It is. That is true. It is hard.
He may be giving it his best effort.
But back about a week and a half ago, Murphy signed another executive order. This was 196. It lowered the indoor and outdoor gathering limits. Effective on the 17th, indoor gathering limits decreased from 25 to 10 people, and the outdoor gathering limit decreased from 500 to 150. That was effective. Is today Monday?
Today's Monday.
Today is Monday. That's effective today.
Yeah.
Effective today. By gosh, if you're in a group of 500 in New Jersey, get out of it today. You're in trouble. They're going to cite you. So he has not closed restaurants. It's not as draconian as what's happening in California, but he was caught out eating. Looks like with his family, maybe with family and friends. And we have video queued up. Someone very frustrated with the lockdowns found him, pulled out their camera, started shooting, and this is what we got.
Oh my God, it is!
Hey, how you doing?
Oh my God, Murphy,
How you doing?
Such a dick.
You're having fun with your family. In the meantime, you're having all kind of other bullshit going on.
No, I'm not drunk. As a matter of fact,
Put your mask on.
you can go f yourself. How's that? I don't need a
Mask on. You know why I don't need a mask? Because there ain't
I
nothing
like
f***ing wrong
Trump.
with me.
I like your Trump
You're
phone case.
f***ing right. You
Guess
do.
who Trump likes? He likes my dad.
Yeah,
No, he doesn't like your
Oh, he
face.
does. He
Get
does.
the f out of here. Thank you. Let's go.
Thank you. Get out of here. You know what? You
Come on.
So I love how it cuts back to him right at the end, and his mask is back on.
Yeah, that was funny.
And I couldn't tell if that was a PR thing. Like, oh my gosh, it looks bad enough. I better get my mask on. Or if he was just trying to be dutiful and wasn't eating, and so he decided to put it on. Say what you will about any of that. This had to have been uncomfortable for our friend Phil.
One would imagine.
One would imagine. This is not the first time we've seen behavior like this, though. If you guys happen to remember, back in 2018, Mitch McConnell, I think he was chased out of a restaurant. Sarah Sanders was denied entry at a restaurant. I think there were a couple of other, there were a couple of,
There's a few
blanking
more.
on a couple of other Trump officials.
And there
who
were
had the
just
same thing happen.
some
Kristen Nielsen.
Nielsen, right? There were some just civilians too. There were Black Lives Matter protesters who just harassed. I'm going to calling them civilians, not government officials.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. That
eating
the
at
video that went
restaurants
viral,
and,
the say her name,
Exactly,
garbage, all of that. Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
foolishness.
So all of that was fair game back before it looked like Biden had won the election.
Right.
And if you remember, Maxine Waters even admonished us, saying the following.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not.
Thank you, Maxine. We will do that when we see people at a gasoline station.
As I said at the time, that is somebody who hasn't pumped her own gas
In a very
decades.
long time. In a very long
Gasoline
time. A
station.
gasoline station.
When's the last time you used the word gasoline?
The last time I filled up with ethyl. That's when. So my question for you guys. Well, first off, one observation, then two questions. The observation, I understand the frustration with lockdowns. My family and I absolutely hate them.
Amen.
But
Yep.
let's be honest about this. What those people did to Murphy and his family was completely out of line. If you're an elected official, yeah, you are fair game out there, and people are going to come up and ask you awkward questions. That does not excuse people using pejorative terms and being belligerent and those things.
Right.
Especially when he's sitting there with his family,
Yeah.
you know?
in that setting, yes.
There's a time and a place.
That's
you know?
right.
Yeah, exactly. Like on the floor of the house.
Right.
That's a good time to curse people. So she's out of line, but I do understand where she's coming from. I understand the frustration. So quick question for you guys. First off, do you really think Maxine was so short-sighted she didn't see this coming. I mean, she had to have known that turnabout was going to be fair play.
You want to take that before I go off on Maxine?
You know, I have seen that clip over and over again, and I just don't think she was thinking about the consequences of her words.
No!
Right? I don't even think, I think she was just speaking out of passion and honestly, maybe hatred for the other side or anger with the other side. And I don't think that she knew that she would get this type of response. You know, it kind of flipped on them. So
There's not much to add to that, except that I don't know that Maxine Waters has ever considered the consequences of her words or actions at any point in her political career. And that is one of the defining characteristics of leftists, right? Not necessarily Democrats, but leftists is the complete ignorance of the concept of unintended consequences. They don't even, I have never seen a leftist, I'm not talking about liberals, I'm not talking about Democrats, I have never seen a leftist pause and say, let's think about this for a moment. Let's think about, okay, well, if we do this, what consequence might there be that we hadn't thought of? We know we're trying to do this, but what other things might also happen? 0 times I've ever seen a leftist engage in that kind of critical thought, or really any kind of critical thought. So, no, I don't think she saw it coming. I don't think she is a person capable of seeing things coming in that way.
I would agree with that. You see liberals thinking things like that through far more often than you do leftists.
Yeah, to the degree that there are any liberals left who aren't leftists. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Conservatives can fixate almost too much on it, which is why you actually do need people on the other side. They are handy. What you don't need on the other side are leftists, which are extraordinarily dangerous. So, Sarah, do you think the folks who are attacking Murphy there, you think they were out of line?
You know, I understand the frustrations, like you said. I just think, you know, specifically as a Christian for myself, I would handle things in a peaceful and respectful way. And I think that kind of adds to what conservatives hold true as their morality or their values. You know, we want to be peaceful. We want to be respectful. For me, I personally wouldn't have done that, but I understand the frustration behind it.
As much as possible, be at peace with all men.
Yes,
yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. That's right.
Great minds. Great. Well, that's good insight from Sarah the intern.
Yeah,
and
I know a little bit.
And so let me pass the baton over there.
Yeah.
I was talking about COVID on the East Coast. You're interested in COVID on the West Coast.
Yes.
Take it away.
Yeah, so 13 law enforcement agencies are refusing to enforce Dictator Newsom's new curfew in California.
Dictator Newsom.
Yeah, gotta say it how it is.
When she put Dictator Newsom in the show notes, I thought she's gonna fit right in. This is a good this is a good place for her on WJ Live.
Exactly.
Powered, by the way, by the Western Journal. Yeah, I don't think I said that earlier today.
Yeah.
Sorry. Continue,
No,
please.
that's okay. So there's many counties, obviously 13, that are refusing to enforce the curfew. Some include Sacramento County, El Dorado County, Stockton, which is a really big county. And specifically El Dorado County, they put out a memo on November 19th, and they said the sheriff's office will not prevent Thanksgiving activities, maximum occupancies, or mask wearing mandates at social gatherings within the county of El Dorado.
Good for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I think what's really important is that they said that they're going to respond to criminal activity. You know, we know that Newsom thinks that not wearing a mask, you know, you should get fined. That
As
you're a
opposed
criminal.
to mask issues, they're going to worry about crime.
Right? Well, here's a police department saying we're going to go after what really is a danger, you know? And they also said they're going to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. Thought that was awesome.
Good for them.
Really good. Yeah. I mean, in recent
now, I'm
times,
not from. Do you guys know where El Dorado County is? What part of California?
Oh yeah,
that
my
is?
grandpa's from there. Yeah, it's by, how do I describe this? It's up in the mountainy
Okay.
region. There's different parts of
Where
California.
you'd expect them to be maybe a little more independent,
more
a little,
conservative.
Yes.
Yes. I believe they are run in more of a liberal sense, but there's a lot of conservatives in that area.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think this is really interesting because I think and I hope people are starting to wake up, especially in California, and realize how hypocritical a lot of the leftist leaders are, including Newsom. I just wanted to bring up the fact that he has been under fire for dining at a restaurant
Right.
with California Medical Association officials. They were sitting right next to him. None of them were wearing masks.
You would think if anybody would wear a mask in California, it would be somebody
medical
with
officials.
the right.
Yeah, it was quite interesting to see that. And so I think that possibly I can't adhere to their state of mind and what they're thinking exactly about this, but I think the police departments are noticing that and thinking this is very hypocritical. So why should we enforce this? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just police departments that are pushing back on this. The sort of story du jour around here today has been the 7,000 person Jewish wedding in New York that Cuomo is just losing his mind over.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about that because I'd love to send them a wedding present.
Yeah.
Anybody that gets Cuomo to lose his mind, I will financially support that
and
individual.
he is. And what's remarkable, one of our assignment editors was telling me, those 7,000 attendees got there by word of mouth. There was virtually no electronic messaging, which makes it very hard to track down who
or prove.
And you want to. An eerie statement. It makes it very difficult to track down who those Jewish people were.
Yeah.
But it is remarkable, though. It is remarkable
Which puts
because
Cuomo
he's saying
in the position of having to try to do that very thing.
Well, I
have to find these Jewish people.
Yeah. Well,
good luck with that.
The 2,000 years ago, the Italians were crucifying Jews, and
Right.
now he
Hasn't
seems to
stopped.
be interested in doing it again. But it is truly remarkable. These people, that's thousands of people getting together and just saying, forget this. We're going to straight up defy you. I love that the sheriff in Sacramento County is saying this too. That is Newsom's own county, his backyard. His sheriff is not going to enforce his edict. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And I think that's another interesting point. My question to you guys would be, do you think that the sheriff's defiance of this curfew is going to pin Newsom against them?
Yeah, I hope so. My answer would be I hope so. What really has to start happening, and I think we are starting to see it happen in this country, is defiance of these illegal, unconstitutional power grabs, mostly from the Democratic Party, but unfortunately not solely from the Democratic Party, in the name of a questionable health concern at best. I am not saying there's no health concern.
Man,
here,
I
but
can
it
feel
is.
the fact check that just went up on our live stream.
Bring it.
Can feel
Bring
it.
it on.
Bring it. I am not saying that coronavirus, COVID-19 is not dangerous. Of course it is. I am saying that it is not as dangerous as the mainstream media and the Democratic Party want you to believe it is. People have died of it. I know people who've contracted it, who've become very sick. I have a friend who died of it. I'm not saying that it's not. Herman Cain, a friend of the Western Journals, passed away from COVID-19. I am not saying that it isn't dangerous to some people, particularly some very specific sets of people.
Yeah.
It is not the boogeyman that the Democratic Party and some, particularly on the far left, would have you believe. So this kind of refusal to comply is exactly what we need, I think. Look, I shop at a Fry's supermarket. It's 2 miles away from here. When I shop there, I wear a mask. I do it because on the sign on the door of the Fry's, there's a sign that says, Fry's would like you to wear a mask. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It's their store. They asked me to not wear shorts or, no shirt, no service, which really is the opposite because I think
No one's ever going to ask you. To not wear shorts.
well, that's what I'm saying. And
Just to be clear,
think of how their sales would explode if I were in there shirtless.
I
regular
go to
my
that same
God.
fries.
I'm just saying.
I want
I'm
you
just saying there's a
clothed.
marketing opportunity being missed here. That's all I'm saying, Fries. Point being, if I have a point anymore, I wear the mask because Fries asks me to wear a mask. And I will do that at any restaurant that asks me to. At a friend's house, if they want me to wear a mask at their house, I'll do it. I disagree with it. I'll never ask you to wear one around me, but I'll do it. I'll comply with that if you, as a private business, a private citizen, ask me to do it. That's what makes you comfortable. I'm happy to try to make you comfortable. I make enough comments to make you uncomfortable. I need to, like the shirtless thing, that I need to compensate for that in some way.
Yeah.
When the government tells me I have to wear a mask or limit the number of people I can have over for Thanksgiving, I'm going to invite as many people as I know for Thanksgiving and require that none of them wear a mask in my house if they come. I'm not putting up with any of it anymore. The only way that this garbage goes away is if we refuse to comply with it.
Yeah.
So do you think, and I'm sympathetic to what you're saying about it being Fry's prerogative, whether or not they ask you to wear it. And I think it's very decent of you to wear it because of that. I happen to like it when I see people who are in there who are not wearing the mask because I feel like in some way that's what they're doing, that they're pushing back against this.
Certainly doesn't bother me. When
What
I
do you
see
think
people
about
not
that?
wearing
Okay.
masks. I am. Yeah, my name is not Karen. I don't care about people who are not going to comply with that. I think that is a personal decision. I think, a lot of organizations are kind of struggling with this right now. Churches are imagine being a pastor of a church right now and having a bunch of people who watch CNN paranoid about even being in the building together, and a bunch of people, churches tend to, at least evangelical churches tend to lean right. And so you get a bunch of people who watch us who don't want anything to do with a mask, and they want everybody together and let's get within, 6 inches of each other and sing as loud as we can. And imagine being a pastor trying to cater to both those constituencies. I think that's really tough. And so on a personal level, I think it calls for grace. It calls for a willingness to put aside my own beliefs and my own comfort level,
Rights.
even my own rights.
Yeah.
That's right. We can set aside. The government cannot take our rights away from us. We can set them aside for the benefit of other people, and there's nothing dishonorable about that.
No, it's very biblical.
It's very biblical.
Very Christ-like.
Not that I'm claiming to be biblical or Christ-like, but just imagine, trying to be in that position, trying to make that decision for two groups of people.
That's difficult.
Yeah. So, we quoted Paul a little earlier. As much as possible, be at peace with all men. That's what I am trying to do. It is a really tough time right now to be at peace with all men.
It is.
It's a real tough time to be at peace with any men sometimes.
Yeah.
What does it cost me to wear a mask?
To make someone else feel comfortable.
Yeah, very little.
You know that deep down inside, it's not really right for the government to be enforcing that. But at the same time, if I can make someone else feel safe or comfortable, I'll just put it on.
Well, that's the thing. I'll put it on for the latter reason.
Yes,
I won't
yeah.
for the former. Like
Yeah.
If I were in Fry's and had forgotten a mask and a sheriff's deputy comes up to me and says, "Put on your mask," I'll leave the building. I won't do it. I won't I won't be an idiot and make him arrest me, but I won't put on a mask. I'll just be like, no, sorry. And then later I'll tell the Fry's manager, by the way, this happened and that's why you didn't get my money that day.
Yeah, I don't disagree with most of what you're saying, but it seems to me that refusing to do so in public is the better way to show that, to fight back against this, as opposed to doing it in private gatherings.
I completely
And
agree.
I don't have that many private gatherings. So
No,
you're probably going to soirees every
You have
evening.
no private gatherings.
I haven't soireed in a long time.
No, I think the California
I've not
protests,
swarred or aid.
the California protests the other night, I think were brilliant. I wish I lived
Yeah.
in California
Oh,
to
those
take
were
part in
awesome.
those. I
Yeah.
think that is. I
And
think
then
that
you're
was
in the
just a
public
fantastic
space.
thing.
You're not in on private
That's right.
property and those things.
That's
but
exactly right.
there's something about, there's something about, it seems like tacit acceptance of it when I wear it inside, and that You say it doesn't cost you anything to wear. It's costing me an ulcer every time I put one on. I promise you it is.
I'm far more laid back.
My poor wife has heard me come, but she has gotten like me at this point. She hates it probably more than I do.
Yeah.
So I think we've actually, Sarah had another question for us, I know, but I think we've actually answered
I think.
a big chunk of it.
Yeah. No,
That's
you did.
Skillful oration right there. That's what that is.
Yeah, you
We're,
did.
Yeah,
Great punditry.
You know, I do think Americans,
Prolific
to the point of the
punditry.
question you haven't asked,
Mm-hmm.
I think Americans are waking up to this, and I think it's about dang time that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm no expert in guerrilla warfare. I know a little bit about it, but I'll tell you that one common goal of guerrilla fighters throughout history has been to force the government to clamp down on the entire society, right? You
Build
come
the
in, you
pressure.
engage in, that's right, you engage in some sort of non-standard warfare. The police state has to come in and clamp down to keep you from doing that more. And then the people who aren't engaging in that warfare are now feeling oppressed. And all of a sudden, some of those people are coming over onto your side. Now, that's an extreme example. I'm not suggesting any guerrilla warfare here, but that is kind of what needs to happen here. As we defy,
And what is happening? It does seem to be what is happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
As we defy the government in a peaceful, respectful manner,
Nonviolent.
in nonviolent manner, absolutely. As we defy the government, they clamp down more, and then other people go, "No, wait a minute. They were quietly singing to themselves on a street corner. What are you guys doing?"
They were
and all of a
trying
sudden,
to have a wedding.
That's right.
Trying to have a wedding.
Exactly. All of a sudden, next time you meet on that street corner, there's 3 more people that weren't there last time because
Yeah.
they didn't like seeing it.
I have to
Seeing it done
Cuomo's
here.
going to lose Christopher Waltz on them. You remember from Inglorious?
I do.
Inglorious Bastards.
I do.
That's who Cuomo's going to send to deal with these.
Brilliant.
These
And on
folks.
that note, because I don't think we're going to get to a higher point than an Inglorious Bastards reference. We're going to end today's program. Thank you so much for being with us today. Do want to make a quick program note. We're here today, obviously. We're going to be here tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, just like we always are, Monday through Friday. But then we aren't always going to be here for the next several days. We will be gone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the following Monday for a extended Thanksgiving break for us. Let everybody get home, fly, encounter people with far closer than 6 feet apart, enjoy time with their families, spread germs, do all those things that we do over Thanksgiving, and then come back together and sit, 18 inches away from each other here in the WJ Live studio. So that is our plan. We will be back on Tuesday, December 1st. We'll be here tomorrow and then break and be back Tuesday, December 1st. Again, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific.
But news coverage all through that time. We're not leaving
On the
you.
Western
We're just
Journal.
not going to be on WJ Live. WJ Live won't be airing. The Western Journal, however, never sleeps. We really don't.
That is
we really
very
don't.
close to accurate.
So we will, Thanksgiving evening, I and a few other people will be up getting ready to inform you about what's going on the next day.
So you don't miss an episode of WJ Live, because our schedule is going to be a little weird over the next week or so. We invite you to find us on YouTube if you haven't already, youtube.com/WJ Live. It's really easy to find. Click the subscribe button and then click the little bell next to it. That bell will make sure you're notified every time a new episode comes up. So after our brief, 5-day hiatus, you'll get a notification when we are back, or 6-day whatever hiatus it is. You'll get that notification. You'll know we're back here to equip you with the truth, which is our goal every day at both WJ Live and the Western Journal. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you again next time on WJ Live.
The Western Journal has rolled out a brand new subscription model designed specifically for readers like you, who want the unvarnished truth that the establishment media won't tell you. Our multi-tiered plans give you exactly what you want and help us fight fake news during this, the most important election of our lives. Become a subscriber to the Western Journal today and unlock exclusive features you won't find anywhere else. It's easy. Just follow